This story was originally written as a play and optioned by the national broadcaster, the SABC. Welcome to the lesser-known country of the Kingdom of Moldavia. Known for its overgrown jungles, giant pineapples, venomous bronze-fanged adders, and the finest butterfly silk in the world. It's home to tigers so ferocious and so vain that the only way to survive an attack is to dangle your pocket mirror in front of their trembling fish-gut whiskers. It's a place where firebugs will put on a pyrotechnic show for you, and, while you are watching, the satin-smooth hands of vervet monkeys will swipe your wallet. There are mountains of silver here, and gold, and diamonds fall like rain, if you stand in the right place at the right time. There is also blood, old black blood that has leaked into the soil for centuries, fertilizing the land with the life it has recycled. There is thick brown blood that coats the pebbled roads, sticky enough to provide the traction needed for progress. And there is violet blood, new, gushing violet blood that is pumped by love and lust and excitement through the people's veins by their purple piston hearts. I'm glad you could join us. This story, as all good stories are, is about adventure. I'll be your guide, your translator, your... Two armed men scuffle in the castle hall. There is pushing and punching, gasping and groaning. Weapons are drawn, a scimitar and a loaded pistol. King Zam presses the scimitar into the Baron's throat.
"I've got you by the balls now, you scoundrel." "Well, technically, you have me by the throat," whispers the Baron. "My balls are located in another place entirely."
"Excuse me, gentlemen," I say. "I'm not quite finished the introduction yet. I am the Baron of Balaclavia. I need no introduction."
"And I am the king."
I watch them wrestle. Yes, I say, but the story doesn't start here. We need to go back, 16 years into the past. 16 years? Exclaims the Baron. "In that case, Your Royal Highness, could you do me the kindness of lowering your emerald-studded scimitar from my Adam's apple?"
"It's a reasonable request. I'll do so, but only if you remove your ivory-handled pistol from my belly."
They glare at each other one last time, then lower their respective weapons.
"Shall we have a drink while we wait?" asks King Zam. 16 years is an awfully long time."
"That would be smashing," says the Baron. "Much obliged." The king claps his hands for service, and a mousy servant arrives.
"Putin, bring us some warm brandy, the one from Zanofi. Use the snow crystal snifters. Have you heard of it, Baron?"
Putin hurries over to the drinks trolley and begins to prepare their drinks. "Of course," says the Baron. "It's arguably the best brandy in the world, made from baby ruby grapes found only on the highest hills in the forests of Lanao, fermented in 100-year-old oak barrels and seasoned with the happy tears of vegan Veronova virgins." King Zam looks impressed. "That's the one." Putin hands them each a glass, and they clink snifters and wish each other excellent health and happiness. 16 years prior, in an abode far less handsome than this particular castle, with its alabaster turrets and snakeskin ceilings, a woman was lying with her legs open on a straw mattress bed. She was screaming blue murder.
"You can do it, Sharoni. You can do it," said the midwife with baseball mitts for hands. "Let's have one more push. Give it all you've got."
Sharoni strained and screamed as she used all the strength in her body to push. I dare say that you would be screaming too if you were giving birth to a baby as buxom as the Baron.
"His head is out," shouted the midwife. "One more push, love."
The baby made his appearance and gave a lusty yell.
"It's a boy," announced the midwife.
"He's beautiful," said Sharoni. "Isn't he beautiful? He has his father's handsome chin." The midwife nodded enthusiastically.
"I've never seen a more beautiful baby."
That's what the midwife told every new mother, even when Mrs. Beaugion up the hill gave birth to a sprog who looked more like an orangutan than a daughter. The midwife weighed the baby and mutters to herself. "What is it?" asked Sharoni, lifting herself onto her elbows to see.
"He's a record breaker by the looks of it."
"What do you mean?"
"He weighs 68 pebble stone."
She wrapped the infant in a soft muslin receiving blanket that had seen a dozen babes before him. The midwife had boiled it in sweet stream water with dandelion flowers and let it dry in the shade.
"He's a big boy, that's for sure."
Yes, he is," Sharoni cooed as the midwife handed her baby over. "He's destined for big things." And so the Baron was born. Of course, he wasn't always called the Baron. He named himself that after he taught himself to read using a moth-eaten encyclopedia and some sticks of charcoal he found in the backyard. Once he knew how to read, he combed the village and devoured any book he could get his hands on. But one book, in particular, captured his imagination like a grizzly in a bear trap. Look at him now, sitting before the fire crackling in the hearth of his village home, his head buried in the well-thumbed pages. "You're not reading that barren book again, are you, darling?"
"I am," announced the boy. "I read it every day. I think I've read it 1,000 times already, and I'll read it 1,000 times more."
"I don't know how you find the time. With all your golden mongoose hunting and salt river swimming and rescuing fallen chicks from under their tree nests."
"I'm starting archery tomorrow. Mr. Beeswax said he'd teach me."
"Well, just be careful, please."
"You always say that."
"And you do well to remember it." Indeed, with his fearless spirit, the Baron often got himself into sticky situations. When he was 5 years old, he started a fire in the neighbor's barn. The village men rushed to put the fire out and pulled on his sooty ears for causing a ruckus.
"I was just trying to melt some raven feathers," he said.
"Melt some raven feathers?" exclaimed one of the villagers. "Have you gone mad?" The owner of the barn began to take off his belt, but his company stopped him. "I almost lost 4 seasons of straw. In these hard times, you deserve a good whipping, boy." "Go easy on the lad," said the blacksmith.
"He's a mischief maker," yelled the neighbor. "He needs sorting out."
"He needs a father figure."
"Someone to tan his hide, you mean?"
"A good thrashing will fix him," shouted the neighbor, his cheeks as red as ripe nectarines.
"My father would have belted me all the way to Jupiter."
"He fixed you, didn't he? And look how you turned out." The villagers laughed, a little too loudly. "Besides," said the blacksmith, "he burnt his little paws trying to put the thing out. It's punishment enough for the poor mite."
"I thought," said the young Baron, "if I could melt some feathers together, then the thing I'd have made would be able to fly."
The men laugh again, but this time there is affection in it. One of the villagers tousled the boy's hair. "You're a dreamer, all right. You've got little firecrackers in your brain. You'll become someone, that's for sure. He'll become someone. Mark my words." A year later, the Baron traipsed into the wild jungle with nothing but his favorite book, a handkerchief filled with almond biscuits, and his folding hunting knife, and didn't return for 6 nights. He left a note for his mother, telling her not to worry. But as all mothers know, it's impossible to do, especially if you are the mother of a 6-year-old intrepid adventurer. As all mothers know, having a child is like having your heart skipping outside your body, raw and vulnerable to the thundering elements. Sharoni slept outside the house every night he was gone and saw his face in the stars. It was the only way she could know that he was still alive and adventuring, and not inside the belly of a tiger. On the 7th day, he returned, taller, thinner, much, much dirtier, and with an animal attached to his shoulder. He ran towards Sharoni and hugged her legs. She smacked him upside the head, then hugged him harder than she had ever before. "Ouch!" exclaimed Marcus Poindexter, the animal on the boy's shoulder. Sharoni held onto the boy's arms and pushed him away just enough to see the creature. "What now? Who are you, then?"
"This is Marcus Poindexter," said the boy Baron. "He's my pet lemur."
"I prefer the term companion," said the animal.
"A monkey?" asked Sharoni. "A lemur," said the boy. "A talking lemur."
Poindexter smiled in a Cheshire Cat way. The best kind there is. You found him in the jungle? She asked. The Baron shook his head.
He found me.
It was the almond biscuits that did it, said Poindexter. I never have been able to turn down an almond biscuit. Sharoni lifted the boy's chin with her finger to inspect it.
And what happened to your cheek? It's nothing. It's almost healed. I used eucalyptus leaves on it and a tincture of saffron and sage.
It was an unfortunate canoeing incident, said the lemur.
A canoe cut your cheek? She asked. Or a rock, perhaps, in the rapids?
It was a wrestling match with a 40-foot crocodile with filthy yellow daggers for teeth.
Sharoni's face paled. A crocodile? Don't worry, Mama. It wasn't that big. Marcus Poindexter is known to exaggerate.
Then, at 6, there was the infamous horse accident when the Baron jumped onto the rose-petal back of a wild stallion to go for a ride, which went well until they galloped under a particularly low-hanging branch of a popping pepper tree that stuck the young boy in his left eye.
I like my eye patch, said the young Baron, snapping his book shut. It gives me character.
It's a wonder you can read at all with one eye, said his mother.
One eye is all you need. I'm off to archery practice.
Well, take your big brother with you. The boy looked confused.
Dash?
Yes, Dash. Do you have any other old brothers that I don't know about?
Take Dash? To play with arrows? Are you sure?
You know how he loves being included, said Sharoni. How he looks up to you. It'll be good for him. It'll get his head out of the clouds. The years passed quickly, like rocks rolling down the hilly green landscape of mossy southern Moldavia. Despite various colourful stunts and capers, the Baron's thirst for adventure was never quenched. He longed to leave his quiet village in search of a crusade.
A crusade for what?
Asked Dash. The two brothers were standing on the bank of a stream, fishing for blue-scaled lobsters and skimming pebbles.
What do you mean?
Asked the young Baron.
You say you want to go on a crusade. What kind of crusade? For what purpose? It doesn't matter. What do you mean it doesn't matter? The whole point of a crusade is to do something for a reason. I don't need a reason, said the Baron. It'll be an adventure.
Huh?
Meaningless adventure. Where will that get you? What's the point? You think too much. Adventure is the point, egghead. What about the rest? Asked Dash. What else is there?
Success, chipped in the lemur, yawning. Money, love.
Hello, Marcus Poindexter, said the Baron. I didn't see you there.
I was asleep, in the knapsack. The Baron looked at his brother.
Will you look after Ma, you know, when I'm gone? So, you get to go off, and I'll be stuck here in this dead-end village? What will I do? Apart from my blasted ironmonger apprenticeship? Do you know that the ironmonger has a serious case of halitosis? You don't have to. You can come with us. Who is us? Marcus Poindexter and I, of course. Go on a pointless adventure with my little brother and his pet lemur?
I prefer the term companion, said Poindexter.
It'll be a blast. What do you say? Dash threw a pebble into the stream. I'd rather take my chances with the ironmonger.
So the Baron planned his trip, drawing a map of Moldavia on the hide of a yellow buffalo with chalkstone and the juicy wax of lipstick corn. The whole village helped, pointing out what they knew of the lay of the land from their limited journeys to collect stock and capture errant daughters.
This part here, Dudlin, in the west, said one of the villagers. It's much bigger than that. And there's a giant waterfall here that flows backwards up the mountain. Man-eating goblins live behind the fall, so don't go anywhere near it.
The butcher stepped in and sketched a lake. I'm adding in the Fuerte Lake. In the east, here. It's filled with warm, copper-coloured water.
That sounds beautiful, said the young Baron. I'd like to see that.
Stay well away, lad, warned the butcher. It's teeming with piranhas and aqua-sequined mermaids that will drown you if you give them a chance. They all crossed their arms and nodded. Aye, aye, best to stay away.
You must also give a wide berth to the golden grasses of Shamrocky, here, in the centre, said the baker, jabbing the map with her flour-powdered fingers.
Aye, those leaves are razors, agreed her husband.
Those grasses will slice you quicker than the king's emerald-studded scimitar. So, said the boy, I should avoid the east, the west, and the centre of Moldavia.
They all nodded and agreed. So, I'll go to the north then? Oh, no, they all clucked. Oh, no, no, no. That's not a good idea, said the blacksmith. The old neighbour piped up, his frown etched forever into his face.
Don't you know anything, boy?
I'm not a boy, said the young baron. I'm a man. The villagers all laughed. You may have a beard and a broken voice, lad, said the neighbour, but you're not yet 12.
What's in the north, then? Tell me.
The villagers danced on the spot, all keen to tell him. The king, said the butcher.
King Zam, said his wife.
The ruthless, reckless, bloodthirsty king.
The remorseless ruler of the Kingdom of Moldavia.
He's more dangerous than all the rest combined. Him and his savage soldiers. They'll not hesitate for a moment before shooting you full of arrows. Men come out of there looking like porcupines.
Dead porcupines.
Very dead porcupines. If you somehow manage to dance around those arrows, then the army with flintlocks will be waiting for you, and after them, the blunderbusses and the cannons and the boiling oil.
His castle is clad in alabaster, white enough to blind you when you approach.
There is a thorny maze of poisonous snickerbushes all around the castle. It can take days to find your way through, but no one ever does, because they either starve halfway through or eat the deadly snickerberries. It's a bad way to die, a very bad way to die. They nodded and gave each other sincere looks of understanding.
If you get through the maze, which you never will, you'll be faced with a moat alive with the long snapping jaws of gharials.
I can fight them, said the boy.
What are they?
Gharials are narrow-snouted crocodiles, son, the meanest kind, and the king keeps them hungry. He can definitely fight them, piped up Marcus Poindexter. He once fought off a 40-foot crocodile. The villagers chuckled and hooted and stomped their feet in amusement. The baker was laughing so hard she crossed her legs and looked as if she needed the privy. I did too, shouted the one-eyed boy. I did fight off that crocodile. We know, son, said the blacksmith. Then why are you all laughing? It's the talking monkey. He cracks us up every time. On the day of his departure, the baron shook everyone's hands while Sharoni wrung her hands and wept. Good luck, son, said the blacksmith. The cantankerous neighbour's voice was gruff with emotion. Try to stay out of trouble now. Send us word every now and again if you're able, just so that we know you're alive. The young baron kissed his weeping mother and hugged his sulking brother. With a happy wave from the boy and Marcus Poindexter, they began their journey into the wild country of Moldavia. They walked for a year, hiking over thorny mountains and wading through sharp-stoned rivers where the water ran cold and sweet. They walked till the baron's shoes were worn through, which he had grown out of anyway, and was glad to see them stolen by a pair of mischievous ginger squirrels on the eve of his 13th birthday. Every month, at full moon, he sent a raven back to his village with a gift for his mother. A fistful of golden pomegranate jewels, a dried fig, a rock polished smooth by the rushing rapids, a sprig of rooted lavender, a pretty flower fossil, an old kidney bean engraved with a heart. Never had such simple gifts been more happily received, each one a parcel of evidence that her son was still adventuring. When they reached the sea on the westernmost tip of the country, the baron knew that the first leg of his journey was over. They could hear waves crashing and watched as gulls wheeled overhead. Look at that, Poindexter. I've never seen the ocean before. Is this it, then? Asked the talking lemur. Will we go home now? The baron picked up a clamshell. Do you want to go home? No, said Marcus Poindexter. Good, because I have a feeling our adventure has only just begun. What makes you say that? There's an especially ugly man-eating beach goblin standing right behind you. So far, the Baron had fought off a diamond-skinned python, a 10-legged albino forest spider, and a rabid raccoon that tried to kidnap Marcus Poindexter. He had never, however, brawled with an especially ugly man-eating beach goblin. Now listen here, goblin, said the young Baron. I know what you're thinking, and you're wrong. The goblin looked at the boy, his mouth watering. Ooga? You're thinking how tasty we look, but we're not. Ooga! Look here, said the Baron, lifting his threadbare shirt. There's no meat on me, see? Skin and bone I am. He slapped his ribs to accentuate his point. Unfortunately, this had the opposite of the desired effect, and the goblin began to salivate more. The boy lowered his shirt again. I'd just be a waste of your dinner fire. The beach goblin took a step forward and licked his rubbery lips. I'm not sure your argument is having quite the desired effect, said Marcus Poindexter. Ooga! He's pointing that way, said the boy. I think he wants us to go with him. Of course he wants us to go with him. Much less work for him if we walk to his cave before he brains us with that club and throws us in his mussel pot. Come on, then. The Baron began to follow the goblin, who looked mightily pleased with himself. You can't be serious, said the lemur, who was being left behind on the empty beach. You'll end up as a bouillabaisse, or worse, ceviche. The Baron yelled so that Poindexter could hear him. I want to see the waterfall that flows backwards. It'll be the last thing you ever see. They'll batter you. I can handle a battering, said the boy. Marcus Poindexter ran to catch up with the pair. No, I mean they'll batter you and deep fry you. They'll surf and turf you. Well, are you coming? Poindexter straightened his spine as if brushing off an undeserved insult. Of course I am. Soon they approached the magnificent and deadly Dudlin waterfall. Spectacular! Exclaimed the young Baron. Look at that waterfall. It really does go backwards. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Marcus Poindexter nodded. Made all the poignant by the fact that we're about to die. The majesty of it, said the boy. The power. And just behind the watery curtain, 100 hopping, hungry beach goblins who want to boil us for brunch. The goblin, who had lured them there, nodded, hopped on one foot, and salivated. Ooga! They followed him into the cave behind the gravity-defying waterfall. Holy Moldavia! Exclaimed Marcus Poindexter. What is that stench? Old fish bones, said the Baron. Sun-dried sharkskin leather, rotten calamari. Not that. The other smell. The boy sniffed the air. I think that's the goblins. But I don't see any. Just then, the shining, glowing, blinking eyes of 100 slimy beach goblins came out of the shadows. Ooga! The Baron and the lemur took a step back and resisted their impulses to pinch their noses shut against the terrible smell. The goblin, who had brought them to the cave, began to address the crowd. He spoke in a rude-sounding guttural language that the boy nor his companion understood. The group, however, liked what they heard and cheered. Well, said the young Baron, this is going better than I expected. The riot of goblins rushed straight for the Baron, and Poindexter screamed. The goblins lifted them both into the air and began singing a cheerful-sounding song. The lemur stopped shrieking. Wait, what? For a reason unbeknown to the travelling pair, the goblins were celebrating them, lifting them in the air, kissing their ankles, licking their knees, and singing them goblin pop songs. Do you think this is some kind of pre-slaughter ceremony? Whispered the Baron. Probably, said Poindexter, but it's fun nonetheless. Instead of the goblins carrying them to the fishbone fire, they hoisted the pair to a high wall deeper inside the cave, which was illuminated by scores of whale blubber candles. The goblins set them down gently, and the goblin with the club tapped it against the cave wall. There was a slight echo. Ooga! Another goblin holds a fiery torch up to the wall. He's trying to tell us something, said the boy. "Through the rock art."
"Let's see," said the lemur, trying to follow the story drawn on the wall. "This is a woodland elf next to a tree. He has dark hair and a creepy smile. This is a very ugly monkey, and a large dragon is about to cuddle them. I think it's the goblin's rather naive supernatural interpretation of a Shakespearean sonnet." "That is not an elf," said the Baron, "and that dragon is not about to cuddle them. Look at his massive jaws, his dirty, daggery teeth. In fact, he looks quite familiar." Poindexter moves to look at the painting on the left. "The dragon's here too, in an earlier story." The Baron joins him and squints at the illustrations. "He's ferocious here. He's just destroying everything, and look, he's gobbling up the goblins." The goblins began hopping up and down again, chattering in excitement. "Hundreds of them," said the Baron. "Ooga! But the elf and the monkey. And the dragon bit the elf's face, and then the two slew the dragon. And look here, look how happy the goblins are. The goblins cheered and danced. "It's not a dragon at all, Poindexter," said the Baron. "Not a woodland elf, not an ugly monkey." "What now?" "It's us. It's a child and a lemur, and that's the crocodile we fought. That's my scar. We chased away their mortal enemy." "But that was so long ago, so far away. How did they know?" "Stories, gossip, rumors, broken telephone. The same way we heard about them." And with that, the chief beach goblin handed the Baron an extraordinary gift. It was a small skeleton of a fish, white and polished and fully intact. The Baron thanked him and hung it on a leather cord around his neck. He didn't know exactly what he would need it for, but he had the feeling it would come in handy. "Thank you, sir," the boy said, bowing down to the gabble of goblins, and they parted to allow the Baron and Marcus Poindexter to continue on their journey. 12 moons later, the pair of travellers reached the centre of Moldavia. During the journey, the Baron had sent his mother 12 raven gifts, including a round sea sponge, a pouch of vanilla tobacco, and a red crayon made from the gum of the rare scarlet sap tree. It had been a challenging walk, but the Baron had taken time out to rest and make himself new clothes when his others fell off. His shirt was cotton, woven from the green gossypiums that embroidered the westward paths they had taken. His pants were silk, made from 1,000 cocoons he had collected from under the leaves of purple-blooded mulberries. He was especially proud of his belt, a special kind of rubbery leather made from the pelt of a kangaroo that he had hunted with his whittled cinnamon arrows. He had also fashioned a rainproof hooded jacket and a pair of sturdy shoes. The marsupial meat he had divided. He roasted the ribs with green wasp honey over a rosemary wood fire and shared it with a passing shepherd who told him of unrest in the north. "The people are planning a coup against the king," said the travelling man. "They've grown tired of his careless and evil ways. They're starving. They're digging up frozen potatoes to eat. They're dressing their children in rags while the king flounces around in gold-trimmed velvet." The rest of it he cut and cured and made into smashed coriander biltong, the kangaroo, not his dinner guest. The pair tried to avoid shamrocki, the golden grasses of the interior they had been warned about, but there seemed to be no access to the west without entering the fields of razors. "Look at how it shimmers," exclaimed the Baron. "How the breeze makes it come alive." "It'll cut us to ribbons," said Marcus Poindexter. "Then at least we'll die in the most beautiful place in the world." The lemur may have whimpered. "We either brave the golden glade or we go home." And so the Baron lifted Marcus Poindexter onto the top of his head where the blades could not reach him. He wore his kangaroo skin as he waded through the sharp plants and, after 7 days, emerged with only 700 cuts instead of the expected and fatal 700,000. He was weak and his skin was on fire, but an unscathed Marcus Poindexter bathed his wounds in oak sap and chamomile tea, and by the next day he was fit to walk again.
The Baron harvested some of the brilliant grass, and at the full moon he sent half the bundle with a raven to his mother. The rest he kept in his knapsack. It was time to head to the westernmost point of Moldavia, and the warm as bathwater Lake Fuerte. The Baron was 15 years old by the time they reached Fuerte. Again, his clothes had fallen off him, but this time he had not replaced them. The winds of Fuerte blew hot and carried the aroma of nutmeg reeds and healing mud, and he liked the feeling of the sun on his skin, which turned his body a beautiful burnished mahogany that would never fade for as long as he lived. He no longer needed shoes. His feet now had their own leather. When the Baron and Marcus Poindexter saw the gentle lapping lake, the expanse of welcoming water, they forgot all mention of the piranhas and dangerous mermaids and dove into the copper-colored sea. "I need to stay here where it's shallow," said the lemur. "I can't swim, and you can stop tickling me now." "I'm not tickling you." Marcus Poindexter let out a shrill laugh. "I mean it, Baron. Cut it out." "I'm not doing anything." "Stop," giggled the animal. "Stop." The Baron lifted his hands out of the water. "Look, here are my hands. They're nowhere near you." The lemur frowned. "But then—" Before he could finish his sentence, he was pulled sharply under the water. "Poindexter?" called the Baron. "Poindexter, stop kidding around." He couldn't help feeling scared. He took a deep breath and dove down into the water, trying to find his friend. He went under again and again, but Poindexter was nowhere to be found. Just as the Baron was about to pass out from the lack of oxygen in his desperate rescue attempt, something magical happened. The underwater world of Lake Fuerte came alive. There was music, harps played by beautiful mermaids and singing. They smiled at the Baron and beckoned him closer. Their long hair flowed in the gentle currents of the water. "Baron," said the mermaid with red hair, "we've been expecting you." "We're so glad you're here," said the one next to her, with shimmering pale blue scales. "Where's Poindexter?" The mermaids parted to show him the lemur, who was relaxing with his paws behind his head. He sighed happily. "Don't mind me." The mermaids were feeding Poindexter peeled sea grapes and massaging his lemur toes. "What is this?" asked the Baron. "Am I dead? Have I drowned?" The mermaid with red hair laughed. "You humans are always so paranoid." "Just relax," said the other. "You've come a long way. Sit down. Let us pamper you. You deserve it." "I was told about you," said the Baron, "that your beauty is enough to drown a man." The redhead laughed again. "Well, that may be true." The other one tittered. "He's not just handsome. Just look at that chin. He's charming, too." "I've heard that you've drowned legions of men," said the Baron, "that this river sand is made up of the crushed skeletons of generations of Moldavians." "If you think that is true, then why are you not afraid of us?" asked the mermaid. "How do you know that I'm not afraid?" "Because it is the fear that drowns the men, not us." "Not unless we choose to, anyway," said the one feeding Poindexter, and there is the tinkling sound of mermaid laughter, like seashells on a wind chime. "And why do you choose not to drown me?" asked the Baron. "You were kind to our father, who you passed a year ago in Shamrocky. He was hungry, and you shared your meal with him. Besides, you're too handsome to drown," said the mermaid with blue scales. "Your father? The only person I met there was a travelling shepherd." The women laughed again. "Sometimes he travels as a shepherd, sometimes a cobbler. He finds his merman tail is not practical for long journeys on land and relies on the kindness of strangers. His job is an important one, to spread the word of the ruthless king who eats gold while the children of Moldavia starve. You helped him do that." "We'd like to thank you," said the mermaid massaging Poindexter, who had all but passed out from the pleasure. "Let us take care of you." A new mermaid, this one with blonde hair, swam up with a tray of refreshments. "Here, have some caviar and some sea berry wine. The redhead begins to rub his shoulders. "Oh, that's good," said the Baron. "Now, just let yourself go." As the Baron began to relax, a white fish darted towards him and whispered in his ear,
"Don't fall asleep."
"What?" asked the Baron, his eyelids heavy. "Why?" The fish dashed away again. Luckily, in a moment of clarity, the Baron understood the fish's message. If he fell asleep, his bones would join the skeleton sand that was underneath him. "Poindexter!" The lemur was practically comatose. "Uh-huh. Don't fall asleep. If you fall asleep underwater, you'll never wake up." "That's true," said the mermaid with the siren red hair, cocking her head. "But don't take it personally." And the Baron didn't, because he knew that no one could deny their true nature, least of all mermaids. When the pair of travellers had enjoyed their share of lake luxuries and their bodies were sated and revived, they surfaced to the cornflower sky and dried off in the sun. The mermaids had been reluctant to let the Baron go, but when he insisted, they had kissed him with their briny pink lips and given him a parting gift: a tightly stitched nori leaf suit with mermaid scales for armor. "The other lemurs are never going to believe me when I tell them about that." It did feel like a dream. I can see how some men don't come out alive. The mermaids were very, shall we say, persuasive. "But we have things to do, places to be." "What? Where?" "The north, of course. Where else? We have a kingdom to conquer." In the time it took the intrepid adventurers to get from Fuerte to the edge of the purple pines, the forest bordering King Zam's castle, the Baron had sent his mother the following gifts: an adder stone, a whitewood bonsai sapling, a pouch of cumin incense, an abandoned starling's nest with a single speckled egg inside, and a hairbrush made of purple pine needles. The egg may not have made the journey intact. Ravens can be mischievous like that. They came across a glade, a clearing in the forest where a dozen ramshackle houses stood. The Baron was about to call out his greeting when a rather large rifle appeared at his temple and the safety catch was flicked off. A man with a mask yelled at them.
"And what have we here? An intruder? A pirate? A spy?"
The Baron remained calm. "We come in peace."
"Ha! That's exactly what a spy would say. Put your hands up or I'll blow them off."
"That seems a little brash," said Marcus Poindexter. "Wait, who are you behind that mask? You look familiar." Comrade Bandito looked shocked.
"What sorcery is this? A talking ape as a pet?"
A beautiful woman approached. "Don't be ridiculous. It's a lemur, and I'm sure he prefers the term companion." Poindexter sighed. "I think I'm in love." "Comrade Bandito," said the woman, "put down your rifle." The masked man reluctantly lowered his weapon. "Hello," said the woman, shaking their hands. "I'm Isadora. You must be starving. Come, I think the venison stew is finished, but I have some bread and dried apricots." Comrade Bandito slammed the butt of his rifle on the hard ground.
"You're going to give our bread to an enemy?"
"This is no enemy." Isadora led the pair to her hut. "Why does Comrade Bandito wear a mask?" asked the lemur. "He thinks it makes him look more fierce." "Why does he want to look fierce?" he asked. Isadora served them some dark bread and poured some green wasp honey mead. "Because he's the leader of the revolution. He has to look intimidating." "The revolution?" asked the Baron. "Against the king?" "Of course. What else? We're on our way to storm the castle. It'll be the biggest coup d'etat in the history of Moldavia." "Excellent," said the Baron, gulping mead. "We'll join you if you will have us." "It's a long journey," said Isadora. "It will take many moons to get there." "My lady, you are looking at the very best journeymen you will ever meet. We can walk thousands of miles and hunt and forage for food and cook with flair. We will carry your bags." Isadora shrugged. "I don't have any bags." "Poindexter here is also very talented in finding fresh water in a desert." The lemur nodded enthusiastically. She said, crossing her arms. Can you fight? Of course we can fight, said Poindexter. We once killed a 40-foot croc. We can fight, said the Baron. Isadora took their empty plates from them. Then you'll be a welcome addition. The evening was warm and golden, and the firebugs celebrated by putting on a show for the rebel army. But when the sun went down, the wind came up. It whistled through the holes in the walls, and the room grew blue with cold. Isadora invited the Baron to share her bed, and they lay together, close, like ivory and ebony spoons, while Marcus Poindexter kept their feet warm. Over the next few months, the revolutionaries travelled north towards the castle, picking up other volunteers along the way. This included an apple farmer who lost his crop due to King Zam's short-sighted agricultural policies, a father who had 7 hungry children at home, and a smelly vagrant who had nothing better to do. Some of the men had joined just to be part of something. Some of the men were marching because they wanted to see the legendary royal castle and watch it fall. But some of the advancers were true revolutionaries with motives as clear as ice. Their hearts were pumping with the violet blood of rebels with a cause.
Can you hear that? Asked Comrade Bandito. Stop! Stop, everyone!
Isadora freezes. It's the Royal Guard. We're here. We've reached the castle. The men cheered.
Holy Moldavia, men! Keep it down! We hardly want to announce our arrival.
There was some muttering and an apology. So, said the Baron, what is your strategy to penetrate the castle's defences? Comrade Bandito put his hands on his hips.
We need to gather intelligence first.
One of the rebel soldiers murmured,
Intelligence? Pah!
When Comrade Bandito looked at him sharply, he continued,
We've been travelling for 7 seasons. We don't want to mess about now that we're here. I say we advance, right now. I say we storm the castle.
The others mumbled in agreement.
Listen, men, said Bandito.
Isadora cleared her throat.
And women, he quickly added.
Marcus Poindexter cleared his throat.
And primates. The royal castle of the Kingdom of Moldavia is a building unlike any other. One does not simply march up to it and lay siege.
Aye, said one of the rebels. It has a deadly maze to begin with.
Exactly, said Bandito.
And the snapping jaws of the gharials are legendary. The rebels reluctantly agreed.
Fine, fine, said the impatient one. What do you suggest? What we require, said their leader, is a first arrow. A what now? A courageous man who will go first. An infiltrator. A reconnoiter.
Someone who will assess the situation, said Isadora. Perhaps even find a way to allow us access with minimal bloodshed. Someone who will most likely die a violent and painful death.
Now, said Comrade Bandito, I'm assuming that due to the danger inherent to the task, there are no volunteers?
To the contrary, said the Baron, who stepped forward. The lemur sighed. Oh, brother. I'd be honoured to be your first arrow, said the Baron. I will leave immediately. I'll go too, said Isadora. I feel as if I should be the one to go, said Bandito. No, comrade, you are needed here. You need to lead your army when the time is right. We'll send you a signal when the coast is clear. Bandito thought it over. All right, he said. Here, take a sandwich. The trio walked and crept and eventually crawled in the sweet soft clover and double-edged thorns until they reached the castle grounds. There was, indeed, a gigantic maze, clipped expertly from hundreds upon hundreds of tall snicker bushes. Once they entered the labyrinth, they were able to stand up again, undetected. They say it takes days to navigate this maze, said the Baron, that you end up driven mad by the puzzle, or worse, starving, and forced to eat the poisonous snickerberries. That won't happen to us, said Isadora. How do you know? Asked Poindexter. I was taught the way. What? Asked the Baron. How? It's a long story. I'd love to hear it, he said. I'll tell you one day. While it felt like the trio were walking in circles for hour upon hour, they were indeed making good progress. They were a paltry mile from the exit when they got terribly lost. "I don't understand it," said Isadora. "I've walked this maze 100 times. The path is engraved on my heart. I know this is the right way, but it's a dead end." "It's simple," said the Baron. Poindexter looked up at him. "It is? They've changed it. Not difficult to do. Plant a few new bushes, et voilà." "But what will we do? It's getting dark." "Let's sit down for a moment and rest." "We don't have time," she cried. "We'll have our sandwiches and figure a way out." The trio sat down and began to eat. "These sandwiches are awful," said the Baron. "Oh, I should have warned you. Comrade Bandito makes terrible sandwiches." The Baron opened his knapsack and pulled out a bundle of golden grass. "What are you doing?" asked Isadora. "What is that?" "I've just had an idea." "Those are blades of golden grass from Shamrocky," said Marcus Poindexter. "They're magnetic, you see, so in theory—" Happy understanding dawned on Isadora's face. "They should be able to point us north." So the Baron, Isadora, and Marcus Poindexter used the magnetic grass as a golden compass to find their way out of the deadly maze. When they emerged on the other side, the sun was setting in the distance, burning the landscape around it like a fiery globe. The air was painted pink and orange, and the Baron was sure that Isadora had never looked more beautiful. "Isadora," said the Baron. "Yes?" She looked at him intently. "Have you got a plan? To evade the ghastly gharials?" They all looked down at the gharial-infested moat, the creatures savagely snapping their jaws. "They look especially hungry," said Marcus Poindexter. "Vicious things. Legend has it that they are 100% lethal." "Our chances aren't good," said the Baron. "But you do have a plan?" Isadora asked. "I do. But before we have the chance to capitulate to our watery graves, I need to tell you something." "And I need to tell you something," she said. The snapping and thrashing of the gharials got louder. Poindexter cleared his throat. "Could we perhaps save the heart-to-heart for after the attack of the amphibians? The sun has almost set, and I feel we'll have more of a chance while we can still, well, see them." "Good point. Bravo. Isadora, can you swim?" "Of course I can." "All right. Poindexter, climb into my knapsack. I'll strap it to my back, I'll go in first and fight the crocodilians off. Isadora, you swim in my wake. I'll protect you from the front." Isadora whips out her pistol. "And I'll protect you from the back." She loaded the gun. "Holy Moldavia," said the Baron. "That's a handsome pistol. Ivory?" "You have a good eye, Baron." "Let's go." They entered the perilous water. It was an epic battle between man and beast. The Baron wrestled 76 gharials on his way across the water, protected by his nori-leaf suit. Isadora shot the stragglers that wouldn't let go. As they reached the middle of the moat, the Baron lost his strength. He found that he could no longer swim, carry Marcus Poindexter, and fight off the infernal creatures. "It's okay, Baron," said the lemur. "Leave me behind." "Never!" yelled the Baron. "It's the only way you'll survive." Still, the Baron refused. Just then, a new wave of gharials swam up to attack them, and the Baron knew with a sinking heart that he would not be able to fight them off. Isadora tried to shoot them, but the pistol became jammed. Marcus Poindexter, realizing that the only way to save the Baron was to dive in, executed a most elegant swan dive into the teeming grey water. But the Baron knew that Poindexter, despite his bravado, could not swim, so he dived in after him. Once the Baron's nori suit was fully submerged, it turned into a merman tail. Not only was the Baron able to swim with renewed vigor, but the presence of the sparkling mermaid scales completely subdued the gharials. It was as if the crocodilians were mesmerized by the glinting sequins, and their fang-filled jaws snapped shut and stayed shut. The Baron heard the tinkling laugh of the mermaids. The Baron rescued Poindexter. They reached the opposite bank and collapsed gratefully on the land. Poor Poindexter was coughing and spluttering. "That was incredible," said Isadora, panting. "What With a dangerous whistle, an arrow sheared the air and pierced the tree trunk behind her. She yelled in fright, then tucked and rolled. "The king's guard," said the Baron. "They've seen us." Another arrow just missed them, the shaft vibrating in the air next to the Baron's bare feet. Point Dexter gasped. "Follow me," whispered Isadora. "I know the way to a secret passage." They sprinted away from the attackers, running around the base of the castle wall while arrows nipped at their heels. Isadora stopped when she found what she was looking for, a small door that blended almost seamlessly into the stone wall. She desperately tried the handle, but it was locked. An arrow missed her head by less than an inch. Isadora swore and kicked the door. "It's locked, and I no longer have the key." "Stand back," said the Baron, and tried to knock it down with his bulk, but it didn't work. The darkening sky rained arrows all around them. "It's a strange door," mused the lemur. "So small, as if it had been built by goblins." "What did you say?" "Nothing, just that it's small, like a goblin door." This gave the Baron an idea. He tore the perfect fish skeleton from the cord around his neck and slotted it into the keyhole. The skeleton key turned smoothly and the door swung open. They rushed inside and slammed it shut behind them. Out of breath and relieved, they knew they had to keep going. "This castle is the size of a small independent country," said the Baron. "How will we find the king?" Isadora wrenched 2 fire torches from the wall and lit them, handing one to the Baron. "The king will be in his cigar lounge," she said. "I know the way." They scampered through the secret passages until they reached a trapdoor in a low ceiling. Isadora handed her weapon to the Baron. "You go ahead," she said. "I'll get the others." They nodded at each other, and the Baron touched her cheek before she disappeared back down the passage towards the Gharials and the deadly maze and Comrade Bandito. The Baron smashed the trapdoor open and hauled himself up into the lounge with a flourish. King Zam, dressed in opulent gold silks, dropped his cigar in shock. "What in the name of—" The Baron pointed Isadora's pistol at him. "King Zam, I take it?" "King Zam, I am?" "I'm the Baron of Balaclavia. You're the ruthless, reckless King of Moldavia. You starve your people and you paint your streets with their blood. I wasn't expecting you to be so short." "I beg your pardon?" The Baron lifted the ivory-handled gun. "You deny it?" "Wholeheartedly." "Well then, sir, you are both a rapscallion and a liar." "Your Majesty is my preferred title." "There's nothing majestic about the starving peasants I have come across, the ruined farms, the high taxes." "High taxes? Hungry people? Hang on. Now that you mention it, it does sound a little familiar. Am I to believe that you know nothing of the absolutely appalling state of your kingdom?" "Well, I, just assumed that if something were wrong, someone would tell me." "Well, I'm here to tell you that this is a revolution, a coup d'etat. Consider yourself overthrown." "This is all a bit sudden," said the king. "I don't know what to say." "You're not going to try to fight?" "Absolutely not. You're 5 times the size of me." "Ah, okay, good. That's very civilized of you." The Baron pocketed the firearm. "Hold on just a moment," said King Zam. "I recognize that. Where did you get that ivory-handled pistol?" Just then, Isadora levered her body up out of the trapdoor. She straightened her back and puffed out her chest. "Where do you think he got it, Zam?" "My queen!" exclaimed Zam, arms open. "My love, my dearest wife, I thought I'd lost you forever." Marcus Poindexter was quite taken aback. "My queen?" "I left you years ago," said Isadora. "I am no longer your queen." "You'll always be my queen." The Baron was as puzzled as the lemur. "Isadora, you wanted us to overthrow your own kingdom? Your own husband?" "I had no choice. It was the only way to get him to listen. We have a duty to protect the people of the kingdom." "I'm listening now. I'm listening. What needs to change?" Isadora retrieved a roll of parchment from her pocket and unspooled it. "There are 100 things on this list. The most pressing being your economic policy on agriculture. I'll do it. You will? You don't feel the need to try to hang on to your disgustingly high taxes, only to be ousted in your ridiculous golden silk pajamas by our rebel army? King Zam looked hurt. I quite like these pajamas. They do bring out your eyes, said the Baron. My mother used to say that my eyes were like sapphires, said the king. Hang on, did you say rebel army? They heard yelling and gunshots in the distance. They're right outside. They'll be here any moment. Would you prefer execution by snickerberries, gharials, or your trusty golden guillotine? The king threw himself at Isadora's feet. Help me! Save me! I don't want to die. Sign this document and you will be spared. The lemur handed him a pen, and the king scribbled his signature on the parchment. Good. We'll start implementing these changes immediately. The king hugged Isadora and came away, looking shocked. Isadora? You have a big belly. Where did that come from? It's not. You're not. You can't be. I'm with child. It's impossible. I haven't seen you in years. It's some kind of wonder. Some immaculate conception. A miracle. You've always been a magical woman. The baby belongs to the Baron, and so do I. The Baron looked at Isadora in wonder, but the moment was spoilt when King Zam lost his temper. The Baron? This Baron? You village muck? You scaramouche? You won't get out of here alive. The king launched himself at the Baron, and the two men scuffled in the castle hall. There was pushing and punching, gasping and groaning. The king had his emerald-studded scimitar to the Baron's throat, who, in turn, had Isadora's ivory pistol buried in the king's belly. I've got you by the balls now, you scoundrel.
Well, technically, you have me by the throat, whispered the Baron. My balls are located in another place entirely.
The rebel army, having defeated the castle guards, stormed into the room. Comrade Bandito aimed his weapon at the king.
Hands off my brother, King Zam!
The Baron stared at Bandito as he pulled off his mask. Dash?
Yes, it's me. And you'd better drop that scimitar now, King, or I'll blow you full of holes with this flintlock and feed what's left of you to your scaly beasts.
All right, said Zam, lowering his scimitar and taking a few steps backwards. Dash looked at his soldiers.
Tie him up.
Be gentle with him, said Isadora.
We have done it, men, announced Dash. We have saved the people of the Kingdom of Moldavia.
The rebel army cheered, and the Baron swept Isadora up into a long and passionate kiss. A few moons later, we find ourselves in a castle bedroom, decorated by the raven post the Baron had sent to his mother while he had been on his grand adventure. She had brought them with her when she had been summoned and had decorated the prince's nursery with them. They were surrounded by, amongst other things, an adder stone, a whitewood bonsai sapling, a pouch of cumin incense, an abandoned starling's nest with a single speckled egg inside, a hairbrush made of purple pine needles, a fistful of golden pomegranate jewels, a rapid polished rock, a bunch of lavender, a pretty fossil, an old kidney bean engraved with a heart. In short, they were surrounded by love. Also, on the shelf was the Baron's favourite childhood book, The Baron of Balaclavia's tales of his fantastic journeys and fabulous adventures. Isadora was screaming blue murder. You can do it, Isadora. You can do it, said the midwife with baseball mitts for hands. Let's have one more push. Give it all you've got. The Baron mops the perspiration from his queen's brow. You have never looked more beautiful. Isadora strains and screams as she uses all the strength in her body to push. I dare say that you would be screaming too if you were giving birth to an infant as buxom as the Baron's baby. His head is out, shouts the midwife. One more push, love. The baby makes his bloody appearance and gives a healthy yell. It's a boy! He's beautiful, says Isadora. Isn't he beautiful? He has his father's handsome chin. The midwife nods enthusiastically. I've never seen a more beautiful baby. And he's a record breaker by the looks of it.
What do you mean?
He weighs 68 pebblestone. She wraps the infant in a soft muslin receiving blanket that had seen dozens of babes before him. The midwife had boiled it in sweet stream water with dandelion flowers and let it dry in the shade. He's a big boy, that's for sure. Yes, he is. Isadora and the Baron coo as the midwife hands the baby over. He's destined for big things.